Hello everyone, welcome back. In today's video, we got a couple of things to discuss. We got a couple more signings to talk about in today's video. We got a couple of waiver updates. We've got a couple of injury updates around the NHL. We got an update on the salary cap from the Board of Governors meeting, and we've also got a couple of trade rumors to discuss involving the Washington Capitals, Columbus Blue Jackets, Nashville Predators, and San Jose Sharks. We'll go to all that coming up right now. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here at the Intent Hockey channel. Now, before we end this video, don't forget to like this video and subscribe down below. We are so close to 100 subscribers. Thank you for all of your support. I'll never be able to do this without you guys, so don't forget to subscribe. But to start off today, I'm going to be discussing a couple of signings that have happened over the past couple of days from around the NHL. One big one happened last night, and that was that the Winnipeg Jets have extended Nino Niederriter. Now, we talked about this a little while ago. I think it was a week or two ago that it sounded like Nino Niederriter wanted to remain in Winnipeg and that he was open to staying, and that the Jets were possibly interested in keeping him around, and they wind up doing so, as the Jets were able to keep him on a 3-year contract extension with the AAV of $4 million, which is exactly the same contract he's on right now. He was on a 2-year deal they signed with Nashville a couple of years ago at $4 million. So his AAV stays the same at $4 million, which isn't overly bad for the Winnipeg Jets for what he brings. He's a solid second, third line forward. He can put up points. He's not the best of point producers, but he's definitely a really good role player and can definitely do really good stuff for the Winnipeg Jets. Last year, he started the season in Nashville. Preds went off on a selling spree, moved into Winnipeg. He finished off the season in Winnipeg. Last year, he put up 78 for the two teams combined, putting up 24 goals and 41 points in that season, so he did all right. One of his better seasons, actually. His best season was 57 points in the 16-17 season with the Minnesota Wild, but that was the fourth time he was able to hit at least 40 points, so really good stuff there from Niederriter last year. He went to Winnipeg this year. So far this year, he's had 6 goals and 14 points in 24 games, which is absolutely phenomenal, playing on the third line too. And he's also had a hat-trick in this year too, so really good stuff there from Niederriter so far. He's really fitting really well. He's done really well, and I think on a line with Adam Lowry on the third line, I think it was, for the Winnipeg Jets. So really good stuff there from Winnipeg, and definitely just after they signed Scheifele, they signed Hellebuck, and now signed Niederriter as well. So it looks like they're trying to keep a lot of their pieces they have right now, and they're really confident in these pieces. So really good sign there. I think Niederriter at $4 million is really good. I thought I probably would have gotten somewhere around that on the open market, maybe somewhere a little bit higher at 4.5, maybe $5 million. But I think $4 million for the next 3 years for a little bit of stability and for keeping in Winnipeg is really good stuff for Niederriter. And knowing that he wanted to stay there and he was open to staying there, I think this was a really good move for the Winnipeg Jets. So just able to get Niederriter signed 3 years, $4 million for a really good second, third line forward who can put up 40 to 50 points on times and can be a really good producer. So it's really good stuff there from the Jets. Meanwhile, one of the guys who we were mentioning was on a PTO has recently signed as well. The Pittsburgh Penguins brought Mark Pysyk training camp on a PTO. He got injured. He missed a lot of training camp, and then the Penguins wound up letting him go off of his PTO. And now, after the Zadorov trade, the Calgary Flames have signed Mark Pysyk. So this is a really good sign, in my opinion. Pysyk's a decent depth defenseman. He can be a 7th, 6th defenseman on a normal team, but the Flames don't have a whole bunch of depth on their team right now, so I could definitely see him be a consistent third pair with now Zadorov gone. Last year, he didn't play at all due to injuries. He signed a 1-year deal with the Detroit Red Wings, but missed the entirety of the season due to an injury, which is why he wound up getting a PTO with the Pittsburgh Penguins. So I don't think it's too much of a surprise he wasn't able to get an NHL contract after being injured again this year. 2 years ago, it was his last full NHL season playing with the Buffalo Sabres. He put up 12 points in 68 games, which wasn't overly bad. One of his higher point totals in the NHL. His highest year came in the 1920 season with Florida when he hit 9 goals and 18 points in 58 games. So definitely, he's not going to probably hit that this year with the Calgary Flames, but at least he's going to be able to get some NHL playing time. This year so far, he had played in 8 games with the Wilkes-Barre Scranton, which was the Penguins AHL affiliates, and he wasn't able to get any points. So I think he'd definitely be a good solid third pair defenseman for the Flames, especially if they consider moving Tanev and Hanifin. If they move those two guys, they're not able to get anyone back. They're going to need a couple of depth options. So Pysyk's a really good option there. He should be able to play third pair minutes. That's a really good move for the Flames after moving on from Zadorov. I think Pysyk will be a fantastic depth addition for the Flames team. It's only for the rest of this year. It's a league-known contract, so it's not like it's going to be anything expensive. And Pysyk's definitely going to be a fantastic addition there for the Calgary Flames. So good thing there for the Calgary Flames after Pysyk was not able to obtain a new contract with the Pittsburgh Penguins in the offseason and training camp. Pysyk was able to get with the Calgary Flames, and he should be able to be a solid third pair defenseman for Calgary. So really good stuff there from the Flames. Then we had a couple of waiver updates, one involving Pysyk. Just a couple of days ago on Saturday, the Calgary Flames placed Mark Pysyk, and the San Jose Sharks placed Nikolai Kuznetsov on waivers. Kuznetsov is a decent third-pair young defenseman who I thought would have had a possibility to be claimed. Pysyk, like we said, was just signed to a new deal by the Calgary Flames. He could have been signed by anyone. The Flames picked him up. But with all the people who could have signed him not signing him, I think it would be a really big shock if he was claimed off of waivers. Kuznetsov, I thought there was a chance that he was claimed off of waivers because he's a younger defenseman, someone who could definitely work well in a team's organization as like a 6th, 7th defenseman. But both wound up clearing. So I'm a little bit surprised Kuznetsov cleared. He's a decent young defenseman who I thought some teams could have interest in from the San Jose Sharks. So I am a little bit shocked about that. I'm not shocked about Pysyk. There was a lot of teams who could have signed him as he was a free agent. Flames signed him, put him on waivers. I don't think that's overly surprising. So it'll be interesting to see, but I think Pysyk's done all right, and I think he's going to be a fantastic depth addition for the Flames, but no one winds up claiming him on waivers. I'm a little bit surprised Kuznetsov clears, but the Sharks are able to sneak him on waivers and are able to get a huge boost there by not having anyone claim him. So really good stuff there for the Sharks and the Flames. Then we saw one player be placed on waivers yesterday, and that was Louis Belpedio, who was a defenseman for the Philadelphia Flyers. He got called up recently with Ristolainen being injured. He showed a really good at the NHL level, but with Ristolainen now back, they really need to send someone down, so they send down Belpedio. I'm not exactly sure the outcome of this one, as at this point in time, as they're recording the video, the waivers haven't happened yet, but I do expect Belpedio probably would clear. I think after his showing at the NHL level, there might be a shot that a team is looking for some defensive help may wind up looking at him for a short-term option, but I think for the most part, Belpedio should probably be a player who winds up being cleared off of waivers. So it'll be interesting to see. But Belpedio's on waivers for Philadelphia Flyers. I do think there's a shot someone claims him, but I'm not saying it's a guarantee. But I think for the most part, he'll probably wind up clearing. So Belpedio's on waivers. We'll see later today if he winds up clearing or if he's going to another team. And the Flames and the Sharks wind up clearing Pysyk and Kuznetsov. And those two are not eligible to be sent down to the AHL, or they could remain with their NHL affiliates. We'll have to wait and see. But those are your waiver updates from the past couple of days. Going over to a quick injury update from around the NHL. Travis Boyd has an upper body injury for the Arizona Coyotes and is out week to week right now for Arizona, so bad news there. Aiden Hill has a lower body injury for the Vegas Golden Knights. He's out day to day right now, so really bad stuff there for Golden Knights. Luke Cunnin has an upper body injury. He's out for an unknown period of time. Noel Acciari for the Penguins and Matt Nieto for the Penguins have lower body injuries. They're out for an unknown period of time. So really bad stuff there for the Penguins. Jonah Gadget has an upper body injury. He's out for an unknown period of time for the Florida Panthers. So that's a really bad blow for the Panthers. Greenway has an upper body injury out for an unknown period of time for the Buffalo Sabres. Meanwhile, Brandon Tanev in Seattle. Josh Mahura in Florida. Detroit with Justin Hull. Ginordi with Chicago, and Mark Pysyk with Calgary have all been cleared to play and have all been able to return to game action. So really good stuff there for those guys. Then Alex Tuch has suffered a lower body injury on Sunday's game. He's out for an unknown period of time. Kyle McCarr suffered an undisclosed injury. He's out day to day right now. Ty Emberson has a lower body injury, as does Nico Sturm. Both are day to day. Zach Bogosian has an upper body injury. He's out for an unknown period of time. However, Barabanov and Ruda for the San Jose Sharks, as well as Gutman for the Blackhawks, have all been cleared to play, and they're able to get back into game action. So really good stuff there for the Chicago Blackhawks. Ridley Gregg has been cleared to play by the Ottawa Senators. Should go back into game action in the not too distant future. Mason McTavish has an upper body injury. He's out day to day right now. Ryan Carpenter has an undisclosed injury. He's going to be out for an unknown period of time. And Arber Xhekaj has been cleared to play for the Montreal Canadiens. So really good stuff there for Montreal. And then on top of that, we got a couple more updates here. Tage Thompson's been cleared to play. He should be able to get back in game action tonight for the Buffalo Sabres, so that's a really big boost. Pierre-Olivier Joseph has been cleared to play for the Pittsburgh Penguins, so he should be getting back into game action in the not too distant future. Jacob Markstrom has a finger injury. He's out week to week right now. The Tuch and Greenway injuries have been updated to should be out around 1 week, so that'll be interesting to see. John Durzi has a lower body injury. He's out for an unknown period of time. Meanwhile, Nico Sturm and Philip Zadina, who were injured just a little while ago, have both wound up being cleared to play. So really good stuff there for San Jose Sharks. So those are your injury updates from the past couple of days. Not a whole bunch of injury updates, and most of it is the smaller side of things. But for players like Markstrom or Tuch or Durzi or Boyd, really bad blows there, as they're going to miss the next little bit of time due to injury updates. So it'll be interesting to see what else happens there, but those are your injury updates. Going over to a quick update here from the Board of Governors meeting. This has been a hot topic from around the NHL. The Board of Governors are meeting in Seattle right now, and the NHL. There's been a lot of talk from a lot of people that there could be some things that they talk about, maybe neck protectors, about all the stuff that went on with the Adam Johnson thing. So there's possibility that they could be talking about that. There's some other smaller options things there that they could also be talking about. I've heard some people say maybe they try and talk about the Arizona thing with the team not having an arena right now. I've heard some people say that's a possibility that might come up in the meetings. I've heard some people like Frank Saravalli say maybe something like expansion is talked about, maybe not a huge indicator about expansion. We talked about this in one of our last videos and about expansion, but it seems like Frank Saravalli thinks that there's a possibility we could get some heat turned up on the expansion stuff, so we have to wait and see. But the one thing we have learned from the Board of Governors meeting so far is that the current projected cap right now for next year will be $87.7 million as the upper cap limit. So right now it's at 83.5. It's hurting a lot of teams. There are a lot of cap-strapped teams right now. So if it's able to improve by $4.2 million, that'll be a major improvement for a lot of teams. Teams like Toronto, Tampa, Vancouver, Minnesota, all these teams who are really tight against the cap will be able to gain a little bit more cap flexibility. And if it keeps on going up like this, over 2 years we'll go up by $8.4 million. Over 3 years we could go up by $12.6 million. And that would be a huge boost to a lot of these teams who are really cap strapped right now. So really good stuff there. But it sounds like the upper limit next year should be somewhere around $87.7 million. That's what seems to be the range right now. Maybe it goes a little bit higher, maybe it's a little bit lower, but it seems to be around $4.2 million right now is what the NHL is expecting the cap to go up to. So that's really big news there. I will probably have a couple more updates on the Board of Governors meeting over the next couple of days, which we'll touch on Thursday. But for now, that's all the news we have on the Board of Governors meeting, and it seems that the cap's going to go up a tremendous amount this year. So that's a really big sigh of relief for a lot of teams after having 1 million increments over the past couple of years. So really good stuff there for the NHL to get the cap to possibly go up even further. But we'll talk about any sort of other things that happened at the Board of Governors meeting later on in our next video. But also going over to a couple of trade rumors here to discuss. Now, there's been a couple of trade rumors I want to discuss here today. First, with the Washington Capitals, this isn't really a trade rumor, but it's going to start picking up a lot of trade rumors. In yesterday's game with Arizona Coyotes and the Washington Capitals, where the Capitals got throttled 6-0, the Washington Capitals, before the game, wound up scratching Evgeny Kuznetsov. Now, there's a lot of talk in the offseason, and even a little bit around the trade line, that Evgeny Kuznetsov was someone who did not want to be in Washington anymore and was looking to be possibly traded. There was a lot of tension, apparently, between him and Peter Laviolette. The coaching change came. It seemed like it sort of helped things a little bit, but Kuznetsov's still not playing overly well, and it seems like a fresh start could be good for him. He's making $7.8 million for the rest of this year plus next year too, so he's still got a decent amount of time on his contract, and for the way he's playing, he's not worth $7.8 million right now. But if you could get really good Kuznetsov, who sort of turns things around after a fresh start and sort of starts to play a lot better, I think there would definitely be an option there for Kuznetsov to be traded. Now, is it going to be happening before a trade deadline? I'm not sure if that would possibly be an option there for the Washington Capitals. Kuznetsov's a really good player, and he's fitting extremely well over his tenure in the Washington Capitals organization. But I just think that at this point in time with the Caps, they're doing all right so far this year, but I still don't think they're a playoff team. With them not doing overly great right now, I definitely think there's a possibility that maybe he winds up getting traded at some point in time. Not sure if it will be right now or possibly in the offseason. I think there will be a lot more complications right now given the fact of his cap hit and stuff like that. But if the Caps go into the offseason and he's in the final year of his deal at $7.8 million, if they're able to retain something so he's down to like $5 million on an AAV, a lot of teams will be interested in Kuznetsov at a $6 or $5 million AAV to be like a solid second or possibly even third line center. So I think there would be a ton of teams interested if Kuznetsov was available, especially some of these teams out here who could definitely use a top-line center or a second-line center. So it'll definitely be interesting to see, but after Kuznetsov scratching, expect trade rumors to around him to be picked up. And although I'm not going to say he's definitely going to be traded in season, as I think it's definitely a possibility, but it's a little bit less likely. I think there's a very likely chance that at least in the offseason, there might be wind up being a separation between the Caps and Kuznetsov. So it'll be interesting to see. But the center, who has a year and a half left on his deal, has not been working out really well in Washington. He's now been healthy scratched, and there's a very likely chance that Kuznetsov could possibly wind up being traded in the not too distant future. So it'll be interesting to see there. Going over to the Columbus Blue Jackets, we talked about last video about how the Edmonton Oilers and the Columbus Blue Jackets were sort of talking about possible trade. The Oilers were scouting a lot of Columbus Blue Jackets games. We said that it could be possibly Spencer Martin. It could be maybe a defenseman like a Peak or a Boqvist. And now it seems like not only are there other teams talking to Columbus right now, but those are possibly not the only players Edmonton's looking at. We've heard a couple of rumors over the past little while that maybe Merzlikins is someone who draws the Edmonton Oilers' interest. Merzlikins is a solid, decent 1A goaltender who I think could definitely work really well in a tandem with Skinner. Merzlikins' old agent also has connections to Edmonton, so there's been a couple of people who have said that maybe Edmonton's looking at Merzlikins and hoping that Edmonton takes Jack Campbell. I think it'll take a lot to move Campbell and acquire Merzlikins if you're Edmonton from Columbus, but it's definitely going to be interesting to see. Maybe that's the sort of deal that Edmonton's sort of scouting on right now. I still think they could definitely look at the Jackets' defense, given the fact that they need defensemen, and the Jackets have an abundance of them. So I still think that's a possibility. But Elliot Freeman on the 32 Slots podcast yesterday also mentioned teams like the Washington Capitals and the Vegas Golden Knights as of having talks with the Columbus Blue Jackets. I'm not exactly sure who those two teams will target, but we know that the Capitals could definitely use a top six forward. We know that the Jackets could also use a center. So I was wondering, maybe this would have to be probably a bigger deal, but I wonder if, just thinking out here, maybe the Jackets and Capitals could possibly do like a line A for Kuznetsov deal. The Jackets need a center, and Kuznetsov looks really good. The Capitals could use some more top six help. Line we know is a really good sniper, so I do wonder if maybe that's sort of a possible deal. The Caps are pretty good defensively. Their goaltending is outstanding this year. But they could definitely use a forward. So if not a Kuznetsov for line trade, maybe they look at a guy like Jack Roslovic or like a Boone Jenner, someone who could definitely help in their top six or top nine. So I think those could be the players the Washington Capitals are looking for. As for the Golden Knights, they have a really good tandem of Hill and Thompson, so I don't think they'll be looking to move one of those guys to get upgrade from Columbus. I could see him maybe look to try and add one of their defensemen, with the fact that the Golden Knights have had a lot of defensemen injured so far this year. But maybe they also look for maybe like a scoring forward. I could see him go after a guy like a Roslovic or a Eric Robinson. So it will be interesting to see, but I could see definitely the Caps and the Knights have interest in maybe a forward from the Columbus Blue Jackets. I don't think they would need a defenseman or a goaltender as much as the Edmonton Oilers do right now. But it sounds like Merzlikins could possibly be a guy who Edmonton is currently looking at from Columbus. That's a possibility. I think it would be a really difficult trade to do, but it'll be interesting to see if that's what the possible trade option is. And meanwhile, for the Golden Knights and the Capitals, I think if they are talking, like Elliot Freeman said to the Columbus Blue Jackets, I think it would be probably around a forward and not a defenseman or a goaltender. So it'll be interesting to see. But those are your updates there for Columbus Blue Jackets. And then going over to a couple of teams who have a lot of defensemen currently on the market via trade options. So first, it sounds like Sharks. According to Elliot Freeman, he mentioned this on his Saturday headlines on Hockey Night in Canada. He mentioned this yesterday on the 32 Thoughts podcast, and that is that the San Jose Sharks are currently open for business and are willing to move any of their defensemen that they have in their roster right now. So it sounds like they could be less likely right now to move some of the younger defensemen, especially the two that they got in the New Jersey Devils trade, he said, like Oka Otyuk or Muka Hamadulin. But besides those guys, it seems that they have a really abundance of defensemen, and they're willing to move basically anyone. Now, if you look at their defense right now, they have 8 defensemen on the NHL roster. Jacob McDonald is a decent 7th defenseman who's a pending UFA, so he could be definitely a decent depth upgrade for a couple of teams. I think they'd rather keep Addison after adding him. He's been a really good piece there, so I think they wouldn't really want to move Addison. But besides that, you have Kyle Burrows, who signed a 3-year, $1.1 million deal in the offseason. He's a decent 6th, 7th defenseman. I could see him be moved. Matthew Benning has 3 years left on his deal, $1.25 million. I could see Benning be moved. He's a decent defenseman who could definitely play on the third pair and produce some offense, so I could see Benning be moved. Jan Ruta, who they acquired in the Carlson trade, has a year and a half left at $2.75 million. That wouldn't be the best of contracts in the NHL, but I could see a lot of teams have some interest in him. Ryan Shimmick, who's currently in the AHL, I think he's in the final year of his deal. He has $2.25 million cap hit. I could see some teams add him as like a decent depth defenseman, so that could be a possible option there for San Jose Sharks. But two guys who really were talked about at length was Mario Ferraro and Marco Vlasic. He says Vlasic is definitely available for trade. Vlasic's been healthy scratched multiple times this year, and he says that Vlasic's really lost his edge, lost his step. But the fact of the matter is, Vlasic's playing like a third pair defenseman right now, at best, and he's got 2.5 years left, the rest of this year plus 2 more seasons, at $7 million. That's going to be a near impossible contract to move at this point in time. If he was playing like a top 4 defenseman, putting up 30 to 40 points, I think there could be some justification for possibly a team trading him. But I think at this point in time, Vlasic is not worth that money. I think it would be extremely impossible to try and move him. And on top of that, they could try and retain salary, but they already have retained salary slots on the Burns and the Carlson contracts. So they only have one retained salary slot for the next, I think it was 2 years or something like that. And unless they want to eat up another contract salary slot and be able to retain any contracts over the next 2 to 3 years, it's going to be extremely difficult to move Vlasic. So they can't really retain any salary on him. He's not playing like a top 4 defenseman, and he's making $7 million. He's also 36 years old, and he's getting up there in age. So it really does seem likely, like, as much as they really want to move him, and as much as they would try and move him as much as they can, it would take not a miracle, but it would take a lot to try and move Vlasic from San Jose. So it'll be interesting to see, but he said that Vlasic's name is out there for possibly being traded, as is Mario Ferraro. He says that Ferraro's a really good young defenseman. He's 25 years old right now. He's got this year plus 2 more seasons at $3.25 million cap hit. Now, he's a really good top 4 defenseman. He doesn't put up a ton of points, but he's a really good defenseman for the San Jose Sharks, and someone who I think a lot of teams could have interest in. He mentioned that the Carolina Hurricanes took a hard run at him last year, and he thinks that the Sharks think that they could wind up having a team out there who has a lot of interest in him, who could definitely try and pay a huge price tag for him. Given the fact the Sharks are in an extreme major rebuild right now, they could definitely look to try and improve that team as much as they can. So I could definitely see a lot of teams have interest in Mario Ferraro, young defenseman who can play second pair minutes, who's not the best, very gifted offensively, but he's a decent defenseman who I think a lot of teams could definitely use. So watch out for Mario Ferraro's name over the next couple of weeks as we get closer and closer to a trade deadline. I think Ferraro will definitely be a possible trade option for a couple of teams. And lastly, here going over to Nashville Predators. Now, Elliot Friedman also mentioned this on both the Saturday Night Headlines and yesterday's 32 Thoughts podcast, but he said that the Nashville Predators could look to try and make some moves on their blue line. He says that Yoshi's not going anywhere. They have McDonough signed for the next couple of years. Yoshi has no movement clause, so it'd be nearly impossible to move him. They said Shen's still signed for a couple of years. They like Lauzon's toughness on the third pair. Spencer Stastny, who's been playing this past year as a regular NHL player, he's actually been quite well as like a third pair defenseman. Apparently the Preds are really high on this guy, and they would really like to keep him long term on their organization, so they like Stastny. So if they keep Stastny, Yossi, Shen, McDonough, there's been a lot of talk that they could move all three possibly of Tyson Barrie, Dante Fabbro, and Alex Carrier. Now, Barrie is a pending UFA. Apparently over the weekend, the Preds have given him permission to talk to other teams to possibly find a trade. It'll be interesting to see if he's able to get dealt, but after being traded last year at the deadline by the Edmonton Oilers, it seems that there were a lot of teams out there who could definitely use Barrie. Barrie's in the final year of his contract, so he's playing for a new contract. On top of that, he's a very good top 4 offensive defenseman on the right side, and something I think a lot of teams could definitely use. So I'm not exactly sure which teams will be linked to him right now, but definitely some teams who could definitely use some right shot defensemen, like a Tyson Barrie, who could definitely be an offensive defenseman. I think could definitely use Barrie. But Freeman also mentioned Carrier and Fabbro. Carrier is also in the final year of his deal. He's a pending UFA, and he's shown in the past he can be a decent offensive defenseman. At the very least, he can be a very good third pair defenseman and can put up points at times. So I could definitely see Carrier be a possible trade option. He also mentioned Dante Fabbro. Fabbro was another trade chip last year at the trade deadline. They signed to a 1-year, $2.5 million deal. He's still an RFA at the end of this year, but is another guy who's not worked out as well as they would like to work out in Nashville, and someone who I think could definitely be possibly to be traded at some point in time by the Nashville Predators. I think it's a little bit less likely than Carrier and Barrie that he's traded before a deadline, given the fact he's an RFA, the other two are UFAs. But I think if the right deal came along, Nashville would be open to moving Dante Fabbro. So it sounded like it's possible all three could be moved. He said it's possible it could be one of them gets moved and two of them stays, or it's possible all three get moved. So it'll be interesting to see, but it sounds like the Preds Preds are trying to shake up their decor a little bit, and Barrie, who they've given permission to talk a possible trade with from other teams, and Carrier and Fabbro could also be on the move in the not-too-distant future. So we'll have to wait and see, but it sounds like the Predators are looking for a couple of defensive trades, and it sounds like they could definitely try and move the defenseman in the not-too-distant future. So it'll be interesting to see, but that's all I'm going to talk about for today. Up to your thoughts on all this down in the comment section. Which of the Preds do you think is the most likely to be moved? Is it Barrie? Is it Carrier? Is it Fabbro? Are you surprised that the Predators wound up giving Barrie permission to seek a trade elsewhere? And you think that could possibly lead to a trade? Which of the Sharks defensemen do you think could possibly be moved? Is it Shimmick, Ruda, Burrows, maybe one of the younger guys like Kuznetsov? Definitely, let's hear your guys' thoughts on that. Plus, do you think Vlasic will be ever able to be moved by the sounds of the Sharks? And do you think that Ferraro is a very likely trade candidate for San Jose? Definitely, let's hear your guys' thoughts on that. Do you think the Jackets make a trade in the not-too-distant future? Are they going to move a Merzlikins to an Edmonton? Are they going to move one of their defensemen to an Edmonton? Or could they move one of their forwards, like maybe Line or a Roslovic or a Robinson or a Jenner to a team like a Washington or a Vegas, so it seems to be having talks with them? Definitely, let's hear your guys' thoughts on that. Do you think the Washington Capitals move Kuznetsov in the not-too-distant future? If so, where do you think he goes? I could see him go to a team like Columbus, like I said, maybe a Calgary. There's definitely a couple of other teams. Boston. I could definitely see a couple of teams that have some interest in a top 6 center like Kuznetsov, so definitely love to hear your guys' thoughts on where you think he goes. Plus, what do you think about the salary cap, most likely going up to $87.7 million this offseason? And what do you think about the injury updates, the waiver updates, and Niederriter signing in Winnipeg? Definitely love to hear your guys' thoughts on all of that down in the comments. So that's what I'm going to talk about for today. Remember to like this video, and if you really liked it, remember to subscribe down below. We are so close to 2 subscribers. Thank you for all your support. I'll never be able to love you guys. Don't forget to subscribe. I also have a blog talking about news, rumors, analysis, stuff like that, so let me check that out. I'll leave a link to that in the description below, and I can't wait to see you guys all for the next video. See you guys soon.